Well, hey everybody, this is Chris Deferio with Keys to the Shop. Welcome to another edition of Shift Break. Today's episode is brought to you by La Marzocco, who has been creating espresso machines by hand in Florence since 1927. Ever since then, they have been supporting the specialty coffee retail community through unmatched reliability and innovation based on the feedback that they get from people who use their machines, and that's why La Marzocco is such a household name in specialty coffee around the world. Machines like the KB90 espresso machine that introduced the straight-in locking portafilters for ergonomics. It has the scales and the drip tray for accuracy and consistency in your extractions, and it also has the auto flush feature, which obviously for cleanliness is awesome and saves a lot of time. And that's just one example of many that La Marzocco has on offer. They have an espresso machine that matches your need over at lamarzocco.usa.com. You should check that website out. And if you're in the market for an espresso machine for your new business or an upgrade to your existing equipment, then you should reach out to them directly. Just email info@lamarzocco.usa.com, and one of their awesome salespeople will help you select the right equipment for your cafe. Find out why La Marzocco is one of the world's most loved espresso machines over at lamarzocco.usa.com. Today's Shift Break is also brought to you by Espressly, whose custom-branded mobile apps for your business really brings together the convenience of mobile ordering for your customers without sacrificing that cafe experience. You know, your customers love your brand, they love what you do, and when you offer them something convenient, you want to make sure that it's well thought out, intuitive, and easy to use, and also brings along that culture and that experience. And that's exactly what Espressly does with its branded mobile apps. It's a no-risk model. There's no setup or development fee. You get a drive-through payment scanner, receipt and label printing capabilities. All the data is stored in the app, and it integrates with the world's most trusted POS platforms, including Square. If you're thinking about apps and mobile ordering for your business, then I definitely recommend checking them out over at espressly.co. That's espressly.co. Okay, everybody. So on Shift Break today, we have a subject that is closely related to the subject of gossip. We have an episode on this. You can find that in the show notes. I think it's a Shift Break. I'm pretty sure it is. But, you know, I think beyond gossip, I wanted to talk about the problem of caricatures and inside jokes regarding customers, regarding people, and what it does to our ability to serve them well and actually make good on the values that we say we have when it comes to hospitality. Because a lot of times, if you listen to the last episode of Keys to the Shop, we talked about teaching your staff your values. If you haven't listened to that, definitely go back and listen to that episode. But the idea that we want to serve our community and we want to show hospitality, it's pretty much universal in coffee bars. It's not something, when I see it as a value, it's okay as a value, but, I would like it to be more specific because literally every single coffee bar serves their community by default and offers hospitality by default, which is exactly why it's easy to kind of toss it away as a value when it's convenient for you. And when it's most convenient is when people become either difficult or they fall into the category of a well-worn caricature or prejudice, bias, or preconception that we have about that person. Now, of course, there's very harmful bias that we can see in service because people are people, and this is just the world we live in. There are going to be biases that we have related to race and gender and beyond. But what I'm really talking about is the less obvious stuff, right? The stuff that is born from inside jokes about customer behavior and the fact that our brains always want to categorize things. We are always bringing information into our brains, even if we're not consciously doing so, and our brains are sorting it out into categories. And it might be different in your brain than in mine, but oftentimes in service, we categorize people into the column of either people that we can dismiss or people that we like. And that's just maybe a survival instinct that we have. Trouble is, If we want to hold ourselves to a high standard in terms of hospitality, and we want to serve our community, and we want to be accessible in the way that we do so and welcome a variety of people in, the way that we categorize people in our speech, in our, talking about the customer when they're not there, making fun of them in the way they behave because it's so similar, what's good here? A customer might say, what's good here? Tell me, what's your favorite drink? Or customers have a lot of kind of funny, similar habits. And almost as a way to soothe ourselves, we like to make fun of them and we create these caricatures of them. And as we do that, what happens is when we're confronted with a person who unwittingly self-selects into that category, maybe they do a hand gesture, maybe they say the phrase that we all know in the inside, in our little inside joke, that customers always say this, and this person said it. And it's really hard for us to give them genuine service because all our brain is doing now, and what we've trained our brain to do, is instead of seeing them as a person, we think of them as a category of person. And we will just kind of not be able to live up to the standards that we have for ourselves, because it'll be all we can do to maybe not laugh or be thinking about how we're going to talk to our, coworkers about them after they're gone. And what's really hard about this is when management and leaders, out of a desire to sort of, bond with their team, commiserate with their team and encourage this kind of, customer hating, that may be a strong word, but just like it's fun to hate on the funny customer that does the funny customer thing. And when they do it again and again, we punish them by not giving them all of our attention or our service because we've dismissed them. They're in the category of people we can dismiss, or people that we can make fun of. And there's just these unwritten rules that if you do this thing, we're going to think of you this way. And that's just kind of taking some steps back, in my opinion. Lots of people are going to say or do things that you think are funny or ignorant or are so similar that it's hard not to sort of categorize them. But that's where professionalism comes in. I think a part of professionalism is pushing against that commiserating, sort of categorizing people out of legitimacy desire that we have, and giving them the benefit of the doubt. You managers and trainers and leaders really need to be aware of this, and don't just succumb to the idea that if you commiserate with your staff that you're bonding with them. Lead by example. Train people to love the customer. Another episode that I think you should listen to, 10 Reasons to Love the Customer. A really old one, but a good one. So all I'm saying here right now is that how we train ourselves in the off season and behind the customer's back in our speech, in our culture, and the way that we categorize them as a group is going to be the default setting for how we react to them when they come into the store. If we're not careful and actively working against this tendency, then our first reactions to people are not going to be the best ones. They're going to be the ones we've trained in, and we lose opportunity that way. And I think that's why a lot of customers have a lackluster experience in specialty coffee, is because of these kind of inside jokes, these caricatures, categorizations. And I think we need to set our minds on something better than that. So I hope that this episode is helpful for you all, and it spoke to maybe something that you can work on in your cafe, and maybe you do this really well, and I am so glad that you do. It's always something to be vigilant about. Be sure to check out those related episodes that I link to in the show notes. I think they'll add a lot of good context and more good information to this conversation. Thank you so much again for joining me on the show, and I will see you here next week for another edition of Shift Break. From keys to the shop.